Okay, I'm so excited. I couldn't wait to show you this. So other than the squiggly lines, you see the link? is.gd/nomag helium. And that implies a website I came upon, because I was trying to figure out, Byron Brubaker told me about this property of helium, that it does not, or that it's used in Joseph Newman's motor. And it's a little known fact, very little known, that the so-called permanent magnet spinning in the inside is not a permanent magnet. It's a canister of helium. But what kind of canister? Now, he said that if you take a glass globe and fill it with helium and surround it with a coil, it has very interesting magnetic properties. Now, here on this web page that I just showed you the shortcut of, we go down to the subtext towards the bottom of, towards the very bottom of the article, and it's under Pauli exclusion principle, and it's saying that if a beam of helium atoms is passed through a magnetic field, no splitting and no deflection is observed. The helium atom, unlike the hydrogen atom, is not magnetic. We could account for the absence of a magnetic moment for helium if we assumed that of the two electrons in the helium 1s orbital, one had its magnetic moment component up and the other down. The two components would then cancel and there would be no resultant magnetic effect. So, what does this have to do? Because in the simulation, here's an example of one simulation and its output. This right here, you're not going to see this, are you, very well? My computer's busy doing other things, so I can't do a screencast. Do you see my, where are we? I don't even know if I'm pointing at it. Alright, I think I am. So this coil here is a rotating coil, and this coil here represents the very large coil surrounding it. So let's see, that's L3 and L1. L3 is the inner and L1 is the outer. So L3, I'm sorry, I can't, this is not a screencast. I'm not going to bother making it easy for you. I'm just going to have to describe it. Let's see, L3. Okay, L3, the voltage of rotor number 1 times the current, oh no, that's the watts. Okay, wait a minute. L3, where are you? Here we go. So the current on L3 is 2.4 megaamps in this simulation. And the current on its surrounding coil is 300 amps, plus minus. Yeah, they're both plus minus because they're sine waves down in here. So the henries on the inner coil is 5.5 microhenries, and the henries on the outer coil is 300 henries. And the outer coil is the one that's stationary, that surrounds the inner one that rotates. Now, the inner coil is supplied by an AC power source to represent the correct result according to Dr. Hastings in Chapter 6 of Joseph Newman's book, The Energy Machine of Joseph Newman. Any addition? So I assumed, for the purposes of making it work, an AC source for the coil. Now, it's all about amps, though, and not volts, because the L3 supplies 2.4 megaamps. So let's go look at L3 on the chart here. Let's see, where is it? Volts and amps, coil. Okay, where are you, L3? L4, L3. L3 is in megaamps, the spinning magnet. Where does it say the volts? Oh, I see. The volts, you go to rotor 1. 24 volts RMS. So the spinning magnet, so-called permanent magnet, is nearly, actually it's 24 3/4, so it's nearly 25 volts RMS because it's at AC. And then the amps is negative 1.5 megaamps. So the amps are huge. And why are they so huge? Even though I'm supplying it, the AC source for that rotor, that spinning magnet, it's a sine wave whose cycle time is 35 cycles per second. No, 35 volts. I'm supplying 35 volts, and it gets reduced to 24 3/4. Okay, you figure that, you know, thermodynamic losses, right? But it's 100,000 cycles per second. Kind of fast. It operates pretty good when you speed up the cycle time. Joseph Newman's motor never, or rotor portion of his energy device never spun that fast. But for the purposes of the simulation, I did this in order to try to make it work for an EV, something that he wanted to do, but may be impossible. I don't know, but the simulation says it is possible. In fact, if you don't even do the Newman motor according to what Byron Brubaker says and just do it according to the simulation, it might be very efficient because you've got a 150 volt battery pack, and actually you have 2 motors. Yeah, I monkeyed with this and I made it quite efficient, such that it had a 10,000 mile range consuming only 300 milliamps according to my calculations. But it's only 1.6 parts per million coefficient of performance. And the where's K1? L1 and L3. Oh, the coupling between the large coil, the L1 and L3, the large coil of 300 henries and the smaller spinning one of 5.5 microhenries, it's a 7,385.5 to 1 winding ratio. So it's not too bad, the winding ratio, 7.4 thousand turns to 1. So I don't know why I thought this was not buildable. But anyway, so the point of this is that helium has very interesting properties in that it's not magnetic. And because it's not magnetic, it draws to mind what kind of canister and why. So let's assume the canister that is rotating is glass. And he covered it to hide the fact that it's glass. And he covered it to hide the fact that there's a coil there, and he covered it to hide the fact that the coil is not connected to itself, let alone to anything else. It's an open path coil. Now, why would you want that? Because the helium is non-magnetic. And so it's not that it has interesting magnetic properties, it has in the sense that it has none, but that means you can take full advantage of its electrostatic properties, and that means you would not want a closed path on your subcircuit there. You would want an open path, and it would develop, of all things, a voltage gradient across the coil because it's an open path. There's no way for it to neutralize that voltage buildup such that current would flow and neutralize the voltage gradient. So instead the voltage gradient builds up, kind of like the way the human nervous system or the mammalian vertebrate nervous system works. We're positive at the head and negative at the tail. Well, here the coil is going to do something similar in all likelihood, although it might keep flipping because it's rotating. But regardless, at least at one point in time, at any one point or 2 points within its turn cycle, it's going to have a maximum voltage gradient across the coil, and it'll just flip between the 2 halves of that rotating cycle. And that means that we might Joseph Newman may have come upon a means by which, with the help of, I believe it was Byron Brubaker, who told him, hey, use helium, check it out, instead of a permanent magnet, to increase efficiency, it may actually create a voltage gradient, which means it may flip the two helium electrons so that they both align and create a magnetic field. And voila, poa, who knows how much magnetism that could release. If even a substantial portion, just a portion, not all of them, but a substantial enough portion of the helium atoms were to flip and orient themselves such that they did possess a magnetic field, the consequences would be humongous. There wouldn't be a whole lot of volts. There would be a voltage gradient. See, the coil is acting as a trigger. So there's not a whole lot of volts there because you don't need much when you're triggering something. But the magnetism would be huge, and that would conform with my model of megaamps. And a mere 24 volts, a mere, where was it again? Why is it blue? Where's the voltage? Oh, damn, I gotta find the voltage. Rotor 1. I gotta find rotor 1. That's it. Rotor 1, where are you? There it is. 35 volts. So rotor 1 is being supplied with 35 volts, not RMS. That's 35 volts AC. And the output, though, of the spinning canister of helium is 2.4 megaamps. And the coil that surrounds it, the stationary large coil, so that's the spinning coil, so to speak. The spinning canister of helium is 5.5 microhenries of inductive strength, while the surrounding copper coil, the massive coil surrounding it, has a inductive strength of 300 henries, and that is L1, and L1 is an AC sine wave of 300 amps. But RMS, it's 203 amps RMS. Now the battery pack gets the benefit because the battery pack shows a wave. Let's see, that would be VBAT1. Where are you? VBAT1 is showing, oh, it's actually costing. Oh, we're actually, see, now that was it. That's why this has a range, a limit, and it's not perpetual motion, because it's a positive flow of amps coming out of the battery pack of 300 milliamps RMS. And it's a 150 volt battery pack. So I did this to be as close to the parameters of an electric car as possible. And in order to do that, something that I didn't think was possible, I did it in this example. I forgot. This is the energy machine of Joseph Newman, version 16A, full throttle speed. This will actually have a range of 10,000 miles, and I believe it's actually 12,000. I just rounded off to the nearest zero, because it's only draining the battery pack at 300 milliamps. And if you have a 150 volt battery pack with, let's say, 100 amp hours per module, and each module is 12 volts, then we have to assume there's 10, 30 is 2.5, 12.5 modules being represented. Let's just say 10. 10 12 volt modules. Each one is 100 amp hours, but they're in series. So that's 10 times 100, that's 1,000 amp hours. Wait a minute. Well, it's 150 volts. See, I think what I did was I divided 150 by 0.3. But that doesn't give us 10,000, does it? Where are you? 150. How did I get 10,000? I only get 500. How do I get 10,000? consuming 200 amps at full throttle speed. Where's the 200 amps? Oh, here it is, L1. Huh? 200 amps? Oh, right, because it was 350 top to bottom. No, 300 top to bottom. But the RMS is 200. Or, 202. 203, actually. So, yeah, the L1 coil is exhibiting 300 amps. Oh, see, so I was assuming that the L1 coil now becomes the motor coil. That was it. But it's pretty large. It's 300 henries. A normal electric car, the standard motor, it might be a 2 henries or under, actually. And this is 150 times larger. That's a pretty massive coil for an electric motor. And I've got 2 of them here being simulated. So this might be better for a train. Except you're going to need more amps than that to pull a train. Well, that's why I didn't think this was very practical as a EV. But I did the best I could. And anyway, so what's the point of this? The point is, I think I understand exactly now what Byron Brubaker was alluding to, is that something that we're told is not magnetic all of a sudden gets switched on and becomes magnetic. Provided we surround, now it has to be glass, because the whole point here is we're creating an electrostatic field that's limited to the helium glass bulb alone. And so the glass is acting as a dielectric, and the coil is an open path, creating a voltage gradient across one dimension, one axis of the glass globe. We're going to get at one end of that axis positive and the other end negative in terms of electrostatic voltage charge. And it's going to probably keep flipping depending on its position as it spins. And it's going to align the atoms of the helium, force them to align so that it all of a sudden magically produces a magnetic field for a split instant. And that'll zap its surrounding coil, L1, the surrounding 300 Henry coil, with a magnetic charge to blend with its voltage that's been building up. Now the L1, the voltage on L1, if I can figure out where that is. How do I read? Oh, it's out 1. Okay, where's out 1? The voltage is 220 volts. Well, actually, it ranges between 220 volts and 20 volts. It's a funny looking wave, because that's where we start to get a blend between the square wave that the commutator is putting out and the AC wave that the spinning helium canister is putting out. So let's see, V out 1, if we can find V out 1. Where is V out 1? Where are you? Is 138.68 volts RMS. So the motor coil is exhibiting, oh, I did that on purpose, right, because I used Greg Tuntlin as my model. He said, give me an over unity, free energy device that produces 140 volts DC to run my car at 200 amps, which is actually not cruising speed, that's acceleration full throttle speed. Cruising speed should be around 60 amps. So I did. I provided 138.68, which is, close to 140 volts. So I did a very good job of streamlining Joseph Newman's energy device. And I did it. And I even got 2 motors running off of a 150 volt battery pack, but providing 140 volts. So it runs off the battery pack, drains it at a very small rate. And why did I think that it only consumes 300 milliamps? Well, yeah, that's the battery pack. Okay. So if you have 100 amp hours times 10, that's only 1,000 amp hours, though. Oh, 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 that's the way I did it. So 1,000, maybe that's it, divided by 0.3, because it's milliamps. That's actually 3,333 amp hours. You know, I don't even know what that means. Yeah. Oh, I know how I figured it. My car drains the car at 30 amps. I believe it's 30 amps, if I'm not mistaken. And 300 milliamps is a 100-to-1 ratio. So if I divide here, it says 10,000 miles by 100, I get 100 miles range, and that's a little more than what I normally get for an hour's worth of driving at 60 miles per hour. I only get 60 miles. So I must have been assuming that I was going to drive a little slower than 60 miles an hour on average. Maybe 40 miles an hour. Yeah, I can get a factor of 2.5 greater. In other words, I can get 2.5 hours worth out of my car if I drive at 10 or 15 miles an hour. But at 35 or 40 miles an hour, which is the ideal speed for that electric motor in that car, the RAV4 EV from 2002, Who Killed the Electric Car is the movie that has that car in there. And you can see a picture of my car, 2 pictures of my car on Wikipedia if you look up RAV4 EV, because it was in a car show. The prior owner put it in there, not me. So, so what am I trying to figure out now? Yeah, so that's probably why I got that. So I don't know, you'll be somewhere around 10,000 miles, 500 miles, or no, 10,000 miles or 5,000 miles. Probably would be closer to the mark, 5,000 miles. But that's still pretty good. You know, how long can you drive your car on a single tank of gas? Certainly not 5,000 miles, let alone, you know, or even 1,000 miles for that matter. You know, even Stanley Meyer said that he had took 22 gallons of water to run his dune buggy, or wood, across country from New York to LA. So, you know, that's 3,000 miles right there. So, you know, on a full charge to be able to go from LA to New York and possibly a return trip, I don't know, that's not bad. That's not bad. At full throttle speed, mind you. 200 amp full throttle speed on a single charge. But it would be a massive motor to build, you know, a 300 Henry coil on just one of the 2 motors on this thing. Yeah, it's no small deal. Whoops. It's no small. Anyway, so I thought I'd share that with you, and I was really flabbergasted that it's so simple and straightforward, and it didn't take me more than 5 minutes to look it up. And there's the link again. There, you can see that, right? A little bit cockeyed. There, maybe that's, there we go. A little less cockeyed. There we go, see? No mag helium. And all I did was a Google, no, not Google, I don't use Google. I use DuckDuckGo. And where did I click on? Where did I get that from? Chemistry, McMaster, Canada. McMaster, Canada. Let's see where I got that from. An Introduction to the Electronic Structure of Atoms and Molecules, Dr. Richard F. W. Botter, Professor of Chemistry, McMaster University, Hamilton, Ontario. So that's the website. It's a college or a university or something. Let's go to home. See what else he's got. An Introduction to the Electronic Structure of Atoms and Molecules, McMaster University, and here's the home page, if it can load. So we've got a university here, and that's basically a professor who's giving the lecture, and it was right there right away, chapter 4 section 2, the magnetic properties of the electron. Unbelievable. It was so straight, and all I did was a little DuckDuckGo.com search. I don't use Google most of the time. I use DuckDuckGo. DuckDuckGo. Whack, 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 whack. Okay, so enough goofing off. So there's the there's what you got to know. That's what you need to know, and it's so unbelievable. It's like, because see, I was trying to figure out this, you know, what's the guy's name? Thomas Henry Murray. You know, he used a substance that he got out of a railway car in Sweden that made his device more efficient, but he already had it running. He just made it more efficient. And the fact of the matter is, Joseph Newman's motor already runs if you have a permanent magnet in there, and that's the way everybody builds it. But this is how you make it really rock. So you got it. You got a glass canister. You evacuate all the air. You fill it with helium. You surround it with a coil. You leave both ends of the coil not connected to anything. Certainly not to itself, but not connected to anything. Probably have to cover the ends to make sure nothing shorts. We don't want an ionic pathway to short out the coil. And then you put it on an axle to have it rotate end over end. You'll probably want the two ends of the coil to rotate perpendicular to the axis of the coil. I doubt it's parallel, or congruent, I should say, with the axis of the coil. I doubt it. I could be wrong, though. It might be that it's congruent with the axis of the coil. So we have two choices, either congruent or perpendicular. Not hard to test each one out to see which one produces the anomaly of turning on the magnetic field of helium for a split instant and then turning it off. Can you imagine that? Unbelievable. Unbelievable. And I didn't think I'd figure it out. And it took 2 seconds, a minute, to do the research to find out. And ta-twing, ha-ha moment, and there it is. So all this work, this handiwork of doing the simulation in LTSpice has paid off. You know, that was the groundwork to plow the field of my fertile little brain, so that when Byron gave me what I needed to know, the whole thing the mystery falls apart. And here we've got a legacy I get to leave you now, hopefully, that won't be taken down. You know, some people were smart. They said they saved every single video of mine that I posted, and now the channel is gone, the Vinyasa channel. So they were smart. I didn't think it would happen, but it did. What I thought wouldn't happen did happen. The Vinyasa channel is gone, and so now I'm putting up all these Joseph Newman videos on my Physics 101 channel on YouTube. And so I'm focused on just that topic, you know, anything related to physics or close to it, because I'm not allowed to make changes to my channels now that I've lost one. I can't add any channels. So I'm stuck with what I got, but I set it up over a year ago knowing that it would probably happen at some point. And so at least I was prepared. So now I got different channels on different topics, and I get to streamline each one, and it's much better this way. So this image is at archive.org, and the name of the website at archive.org, I might as well show that off so that you can see where that is. Whoops. That's not right. Okay. Oh, shoot. That's not right either. Okay, I'll find it here. I'll just have to get it from my bookmarks. Where are you? Here it is. Takes a while to load because I'm uploading videos. So, here's chapter 6. I made a PDF scan of chapter 6. Actually, I think I got it off on. It came off of a PDF online. I didn't get it out of my book, and I just removed the pages pertinent to chapter 6. So we have chapter 6, and there are not too many pages. Oh, I had to get pages from another source. Yeah, see, they have all the. Oh, this is something extra. Yeah, this is talking about, yeah, some extra stuff on constructing the thing. But it doesn't talk about the helium, though. See, that's the problem. There's nothing about the helium in there. You'll never get to know, except for what Byron Brubaker has managed to tell us. So I got a lot of extra stuff in here, as you can see. And then, so this is the title, The Energy Machine of Joseph Newman, Chapter 6. And do I have a shortcut to this? The shortcut for the page is is.gd/Newman chap numeral 6. So, copy link location. So if I did another thingy here, whoopsie, too big. Well, I'll just make it a little bit smaller here. So that's the link of, that's the link. See, now I got everything you need to know to go off and build yourself an over-unity device. Ain't that sweet? Alright.